will be like in this landscape without Gwen or or Rumble as an answer, that Weibo Gaming will not have like an optimal counter pick for. And I'm not sure what that is, like, because on one hand you could be like, okay, well they're gonna go for the Jace flex, but you just smash Sion or any other tank top laner. We've seen top laners have been able to do away with that matchup totally fine. We've also seen York could kind of just be an answer into certain laners, and even if York isn't smashing early on, you know, it just scales. But we're into the draft. We blitzed through the bans. Nico was the priority for NIP. Weibo Gaming not taking any priority top laners off the board, so maybe that was just the true gift of it all, is that there's nothing that they fear giving up over to Breathe that they can prioritize for ppgod.
Yeah, I think this is the most standard start you could have for Weibo Gaming. This feels very comfortable for them. Light on Kai'Sa just to be able to take over in the later part of the game. Tian on Xin Zhao just to be able to play a little bit more consistently through skirmishes. I really like the answer, though, for NIP. This is what I thought they were setting up for. The Sion made a lot of sense from them just because Solo Kill had a good performance on it. I was thinking more of Mbessa, you know, even K'Sante if you really wanted to go that route with these bans available, but it does look like they just want to try and play for, you know, the middle of the map. Once again, they still have left it open, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see where things go with the Rel as the answer on the other side for Weibo.
This is what I will say. I think if you are blue side, it is very hard for yourself to get a guaranteed, like, good matchup for top lane if you want, like, a specific counter pick carry laner. So they're probably waiting for red side if they win this game against Weibo, and then they say, okay, we will set up a scenario where you can get counter pick, but because you, as you called, because you played Sion so well, we feel confident in you in blinding this into anything, and then we'll give priority to everyone else on the map.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly priority towards ppgod, which is really interesting to me because ppgod really has not been a main character for Ninjas in Pyjamas. He's definitely been more passive in the split number 2 than he was in split number 1, and so to see them prioritize something like the Nico so prominently in draft is interesting. Theoretically, this could be a flex for Doinb in the mid lane. I don't think that that's going to happen. I would very much expect this to be Varus Nico in the bot lane, but we see some bans coming in for the second rotation. The Neferi taken off the board. Carry jungler makes a lot of sense to take off the board here, but it's actually going to be the Sylas as that second ban. I thought that they were going to continue down that route with some more aggressive junglers that can match the Xin Zhao. Looks like they just want to take something more comfortable out of Doinb's hands, but there's just a lot of champions that he plays. The Aurora in particular is still up, and that would be something I'd be looking at if I was Ninjas in Pyjamas here.
Sure. All right, well, already some jungle bans. The fact that Neferi made it through the list so far,
you called it, Raafaa.
Okay. At least teams are aware that this champion exists. I looked through a majority of the drafts. I didn't see every series, but I looked through a majority of the drafts ever since LPL went to the Thornbound Spirit Blossom map, and I was like, where's the Shen? Where's the Shen? Where's the Shen? And I don't see any Shens. Maybe, you know, but at least it's starting to pop up. You know, teams are slowly adapting, and it was kind of a new map and patch to spring upon. It was a really big one, so there's a lot of things. Anyway, Weibo taking Talia. That's crazy that this mid laner has dropped this far down the draft, but they snag it for themselves. But an Annie lock-in, wait a minute. I mean, this has to be Annie mid lane, and Annie was one of those champions that did get a considerable amount of buffs specifically on this patch, and paired with something like a Wukong, I think we've answered our questions here, Kman. This isn't necessarily a game to play to leave, but these are strong lane setups that should give Aki time to farm and be a menace in team fights.
Yeah, this is a Wukong team fight setup, engage, whatever you want to call it, type of comp here. We saw something similar, but certainly not exactly from JD Gaming yesterday in game number 3. We saw Scout pick up the Annie and really start to play towards that. There are going to be pluses and minuses for playing towards this comp, but I think what concerns me is their damage in the back half of the game. You are relying a lot on Leave being able to primary damage on Varus, and you know, I look at the comp on the other side, and I see an Ornn on the front line. I see a Rel that you have to break through, even a Xin Zhao that becomes a bit more difficult to break through, and I do get a little bit concerned on that front. That being said, I think you have so much engaged, so much setup that you do have options. You do have opportunities here. I really like the way that specifically Kai'Sa is going to be set up on the other side of this, on red side, for Weibo Gaming, that Light could really take over this game, and even if their comp maybe requires a bit more execution in side lanes, you know, I kind of like what they drafted. Red side looking pretty good here from my perspective.
Yeah, I think Weibo Gaming are kind of very much fitting the profile of what makes them strong. You have an early skirmisher for Tian, who can be your bridge and agency, and as long as Weibo Gaming do not flub what they want to do early game, you have scaling factors in your side lanes with the Ornn in the front and Kai'Sa in the back, and you have a little bit of extra mid-game bridge once the Taliyah gets a chance to start roaming on the map with the level 6, whereas on the blue side, once again, you know, we're curious if this gamble is going to work. You know, we were hoping, we were kind of propping up, okay, is solo kill going to get his chance to shine? Are we going to play to solo kill? It doesn't really seem like this is going to be the game, but we'll see how it all unfolds as we hit the rift for game 1 between Ninjas in Pyjamas and Weibo Gaming.
30秒到达战场，碾碎。
A lot of cheers coming down today. We got some active fans. I'm excited for this one. Looking at the game state here, looking at the level 1s, I really want to reiterate a couple of points because I think both teams have clear win conditions. You know, I was hyping up Weibo's draft and talking about how, oh, you know, the Xin Zhao, the Taliyah, they can control a lot of the map as Raafaa goes over the wall, potentially looking for, you know, something on Aki, who is not here, but I think their comp is harder to execute in the later part of the game. It's not all that hard to hit a Wukong ultimate into an eco ult and, you know, play off of that if you can get your Varus super far ahead.
Yeah.
I'm really looking at bot lane in this game, though.
Yeah, I mean, Weibo Gaming, I think I'm in the same boat with you. This is a composition they've played multiple times before, but still, execution barrier is a lot higher than hitting a bunch of circles, which is what NIP has. But I think the execution for NIP comes from being able to play out the early stages of the game well, and just considering what we have seen from Ninjas in Pyjamas this split so far, it has been
already
in the early game. Aki went to blue, immediately went to the bot side. Tian at least gets the smite secure on it. He's already taken 2 cans, but now he needs to make it out. Still has flash, and unfortunately with Wukong, meanwhile, bot lane action, ppgod forced to flash away as Erha just sent it for the boys. It's an immediate trade of flash summoner spells on supports.
Yeah, that's hugely in favor of Weibo Gaming because Erha does have that Hex Flash, ppgod does not. So definitely a really big advantage down there for Weibo Gaming. We talked about how that bot lane needed to be aggressive. I think this is a pretty Kai'Sa favored lane in terms of how things go with the Rel in particular. At least just after level 3, I think it gets a little bit easier, and with that flash blown, you know, I expect that to be the case. I'm really going to be looking at what this pathing looks like for Tian, though. I do think that when you're looking at getting that Kai'Sa a lead, a lot of the pressure that this Xin Zhao, that this Taliyah are going to be able to generate comes after level 6, and so you just got to make sure you don't make any gigantic mistakes until then. But I'm excited to see. Unfortunately, right now, we're looking top lane. This is the one lane I think individually, champion-wise, you maybe favor solo kill early, just because of the pressure that Sion can put on. It's a little bit more neutral for now, but in that tank v tank matchup, probably nobody generating a big enough lead on their own.
Yeah, there's definitely something very, very terrifying about something like a Sion having so much base damage in his kit. Ornn used to be kind of the king of that for a while when he first debuted, and especially in the spellbook meta, you get the Ignite at level 6 when you get your ultimate, and suddenly you're killing carry top laners in your own right. But Sion, ever since his reemergence back as the de facto top laner for tanks, kind of overtaking K'Sante priority since he's been nowhere in sight for a while. It's definitely a fun time, and when I say fun time, not a fun time for the players playing against the Sion, of course, but we're 4 minutes into the game. Full clears haven't happened. Aki tries to go for a delayed invade onto Tian's top side red quadrant, seeing if there was any scraps left available, and unfortunately, this means that Tian gets an all-access pass to ppgod, who does not have flash from before, and he can connect all of his spells and guaranteed first blood for Weibo.
It's just really unlucky timing for ppgod. He feels like he does it exactly like he's supposed to. He's able to get the clone off, but That strike, it just barely lands from Tian to be able to jump onto him, and at that point, there's just way too much damage. The Nico is way too squishy in the early game, and this is why I like this matchup for Rel, because I think she can really pressure out the Nico, who's got one of the lowest base healths in the entire game, especially once that flash gets blown early. And IP are definitely going to be on the back foot now in the 2v2, and that's going to really matter with Dragon spawning in 10 seconds. We'll see if either jungler want to prioritize that with, you know, Grubs kind of getting pushed back. I expected to see more of a priority on these early Dragons. We haven't necessarily seen that in the LPL, but this could be a pretty fantastic game for that to start.
Yeah, ever since going to the Spirit Blossom map and with Grubs now being shifted back to 8 minutes, laning phase has overall extended, and there seems to be a longer flowchart for junglers within that timeline to do things about it, because as you called out, Dragons haven't really necessarily increased in priority for either teams. They kind of still look at it as the same relative power because it hasn't necessarily been buffed since the map change, right? People still kind of just look at it as like, well, do we have bot lane and mid priority for free? Are we giving up anything for it? No? Okay, well then we'll take it. However, Ninjas in Pyjamas have one of those moments because they know that Light and Raafaa were trying to look for a base. They had mid shove from Doinb since Xiaohu was on base as well, so they find that window, and now there's nothing really that Weibo Gaming can get off the back end of it, so this will at least give NIP a little something back over to the team. It is a mountain dragon, so some extra resistances definitely does not hurt.
Yeah, this is the perk of Doinb, just getting such a big lead in the mid lane 1v1, or being able to generate early as we see some damage coming down onto Xiaohu with that ult. With Tivers dropped, Tivers obviously not quite as strong individually as before, but
I like it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great trade coming in from Doinb. Again, just asserting dominance in that 1v1, not allowing Talia to be able to move to a lot of these plays. That's going to be the goal for Annie moving forward, and it's going to really halt Tian's progress if that continues to be successful for NIP. We see Tian just kind of hovering in the area, but he's very late to the play, maybe not expecting so much proactivity. It's a nice play from Aki and a nice way to pull back some gold for NIP.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of the thing that you'll see sometimes with certain control mage matchups with if the enemy opponent that you're dropping your ultimate nuke on is like someone that wants to roam on a side lane, like against Ryze, against Talia, even against Ahri. If you just nuke them with like Shockwave or even in this case Tivers, it's like they're too low now to make a play on the side lane. They're forced to base, and she didn't have TP, so she would have to take that base, walk back to mid lane. But since that play has passed, Tian has been able to collapse on the bot side, knowing that Aki is nowhere to be found. Playing off of red buff spawn, they're able to brute force their way in now that Xiaohu was able to get the first wave back on map. Stealing the red buff once again. And I have to raise a question here for Aki. This is definitely frustrating. You're getting invaded a lot, you're playing Wukong, you want these resources, you want these camps for yourself. But you have to try and be more strategic about where the enemy jungler is going to be and understand, okay, if they're invading and playing for this prio, I can't try and brute force my way back and contest them outright. I just have to somehow be able to predict where he's going to go and then just look for his camps on the cross trade. But the way that Tian has set up his camps in spawn, it's really hard for him to do that. And it's been a really great setup from Tian so far.
Yeah, this is exactly how you play the Xin Zhao into Wukong matchup. It's very clinical coming in from Tian. You just want to take away as much as possible. You understand that individually you might get outscaled, but as we talked about, I don't think Weibo as a team gets outscaled. Kai'Sa's going to be a really big problem in the back half of the game. Ornn and Rel as a frontline is going to be very difficult to break through with the damage that NIP have at their disposal, but this could be a chance for NIP to pull some resources back, but we could see a full fight here. They look a little pincered. Just going to back off.
Solid stuff for NIP. Remember, for anyone that is not adjusted yet to the Spirit Blossom patch, there's only one spawn of grubs now. It does come in at 8 minutes. It counts as a feat of warfare if you get at least 2. And then if you get all 3, you get the 1 Void Might, which is stronger than what 1 Void Might used to be in the last patch, but not as strong as 2 Void Mights. As a gank and collapse from Doinb, no flash from Breathe. I think this guy is dead to rights, and he's just going to sit in the alcove and cry. Doinb will pick up a kill for NIP.
Nice proactive play there from NIP. They continue to play the map better than the Talia Xin Zhao, which is never ideal. As Weibo Gaming look to try and make a counterplay on the top side. They're going to stop the back.
But do they cancel the other one? Oh, they throw the E, and they have no idea he was still there, though. And they turn
Leave.
around with the ppgod ultimate. Xiaohu had no idea. The flash from Leave aggressively. He knows that there's no way out, so it's only forward to at least guarantee a trade 1-for-1. And we're at 2-2 and 9 minutes.
Crazy trade there from Leave. I don't even think they knew he was there. I think that it just happened to be a bonus in terms of how that fight ended up going, but it's a really nice flash from Leave to be able to turn things around. It's both stuns, actually, the flash and the ghost, expended by the Varus, but we talked about the Varus being very important to this comp. We can talk about Wukong and Nico being really nice setup and Sion, you know, being nice in a side lane. When you're talking about consistent damage on the team, it's just gonna be Leave in the back half of this game to follow up on a lot of those engages. Getting him as much gold as possible here is big, but Tian continuing to grow his lead in the jungle.
Really nice patience from Aki. Xiaohu TP'd in onto the bot side. Did not have flash from the prior fight, but does Aki have enough damage? There it is. Ooh. Crushing blow with the Sheen-empowered proc. That's another kill for NIP.
Yeah, I didn't expect that much damage to come out so quickly. It really felt like Xiaohu was likely going to at least get under tower a bit further, but no, Aki just blows him up, and he's able to pick up that kill. Really nice for tempo, but looking forward, 25 seconds on Dragon spawn here. I would imagine that this is going to be fully in control of Weibo Gaming. They're going to be first to this almost entirely. It looks like Aki doesn't even care too much. He's pinging topside, so we could be seeing a trade of some early objectives here. No dragon stacking might be happening, depending on what Tian wants to do.
Yeah. The fact that NIP were able to get that 3 grub rotation for themselves means that they have the super strong 1 singular Void Might. So if any of NIP able to make a successful play and then just walk up to a turn and start hitting it, and it will at least give them some extra turret pressure. Doinb on the roam here. Breathe is quite tanky on this Ornn, but he's already chunked to nearly 50% HP. And now below 50% HP, Doinb should just be able to blow him up, and unfortunately Erhawk cannot get there in time to equalize the difference.
Yeah, he's just late to the play by a little bit. The flash is a little excessive, but unfortunately it is going to be Breathe once again getting targeted down on a side lane, but with that pressure that was pulled, it should be a free dragon here for Tian. That's nice to at least stop the stacking. For NIP, they needed a big early lead, and they've gotten it for themselves. I really like the proactivity that they've shown. When you're going into Xin Zhao Talia, sometimes it can be a bit intimidating to try to go for a lot of these early plays, but they've done a good job of recognizing that, no, we actually have just as many playmaking tools if we want to use them, and we use them very well.
I mean, the fact that Doinb is technically up CS on Xiaohu, and he's making far more proactive plays than Xiaohu has been able to make so far on the Talia, just goes to show that how well practiced NIP are, at least with this particular pick. If not, Doinb is very practiced. But this is also kind of the MO that Doinb had wanted to do ever since joining NIP back in Split 1. And so far, this is a good start. Now, if we want to allude to later in the stages of the game, that is definitely where... Ooh, almost. Yeah,
almost.
That is where NIP tends to have been struggling the most. Even if they do find these early game leads, they're... I don't know, Kman, you definitely have been watching a little bit more closely NIP series than I have. What's going on in the mid-late game that's causing NIP to fumble the bag?
Well, unfortunately for them, they roll a die before every single game to determine which one of their members will randomly get caught out at 20 minutes. And it's very predictable. Hopefully we are seeing, you know, that roll a little bit better for them today with the lead that they've been able to generate, but it's still only a 1k gold lead, and I will continue to say that I believe the damage profile in the later part of this game does favor Weibo. And so if this game continues to go long, I could definitely see a world where, you know, things get a little bit easier. That gold lead is on Annie, and as much as Annie can be a big disruptor, it can also be pretty easy to kind of avoid a lot of that damage and, you know, more so try and get it on something that's a little bit less valuable on the front line. But Breathe, once again, could be the target here. There's the area, though.
Oh, Breathe had no idea that that Searing Charge was going to be his last, as Aki had slinked through the shadows of that alcove brush. Guaranteed that they could get another kill onto Breathe. Tian will at least be able to pick up the wave here, but meanwhile, mid lane, 2v2, Leave is in trouble, burned both Flash and Ghost, trying to run for the hills, but Tian is going to cut him off. That's definitely a feels bad man for the Varus, as he is not able to escape with his life.
Yeah, not entirely sure what he's doing there. We knew that the Xin Zhao was going to be able to collapse. Talia has ultimate up. It's just a little bit aggressive positioning from him, but definitely gets punished. That's a really nice pick for Weibo to get them, you know, at least kind of back into this game. Still only a 1k gold difference. The only concern I have for Weibo is so much of the gold is on Tian, and it's pretty easy to kind of ignore the Xin Zhao as this game gets to go later. I think the gold distribution is much better for ninjas in pajamas, but it's really going to be about these objectives coming up now. Rift Herald spawning in 20 seconds. That's going to be really important for both of these teams. We already saw the Grubs, of course, go over two ninjas in pajamas, and so it's going to be really interesting. We see the gold graph up on the screen. Doinb solo kill. They've been able to get a lot from Breathe, but Tian doing a great job to pull some back for his own team.
Yeah, but now he's got to be able to pay it forward, right? Whenever you see junglers have this kind of advantage, if he was playing something like an Afiri, oh, hell yeah. You know, I'm sold for this matchup. But Xin Zhao, as you called out already, the usefulness of that advantage tends to teeter off because Xin Zhao is unfortunately just not a 1v9 machine. Wukong definitely fits the bill better, and the fact that Aki, despite some of the early invades that Tian was able to finesse on him and some of the uncomfortable counter jungling he had to experience, he still has found his way into a solid spot. Trinity Force Spike picked up. They're already starting up the Rift Herald, halfway through it already, 2k HP. The collapse is coming in from Weibo Gaming. Aki secures it, but now he's in a very bad spot. Does he have enough cooldowns to get over the wall? He's going to send it with the Cyclone, but Tian falls in the middle of the collapse of NIP. They all funneled into the pit, and no one else from Weibo Gaming was able to help out. Everyone was too far away.
It's a dream fight for ninjas in pajamas. They get exactly what they're looking for, which is this small, close quarters fight. You didn't even have to use Nico ultimate. It wasn't even, you know, thought of in that fight. You just needed to be able to get the Cyclone off, and all of a sudden, everybody on Weibo Gaming ends up being a target. It's really, really big for NIP to be able to pick that up and push their lead a little bit further. Not only that, but they are able to get the Rift Herald as well. It's a really great exchange for them, and now all of a sudden, this map has opened up entirely. We talked about Weibo having the potential to control this map with things like Talia, things like Xin Zhao. It's been flipped entirely on its head, and this game is now in the hands of ninjas in pajamas for sure.
And just like that, no more individual gold leads for anyone on the side of Weibo Gaming. We're going to take a look back with this replay.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about here. It looks good for Weibo at the start. You're like, oh, we're getting Aki separated from the team, but there's just way too much CC. Light's not able to get into the fight at all, and Tian is entirely separated, and from that point, the moment that Wukong can land ult onto 3 people, there's so much damage coming in from Leave, and even from Aki himself at that point because of all the gold that's been injected. It's difficult to win, but now we see that Rift Herald dropped in the mid lane. They're going to use it as priority for the Dragon.
Already got the tier 1 on the top side, which gave them that 3,000 gold advantage total at this point. A Rift Herald unlocking the mid tier 1 would give them a few extra 100 gold on top of it. Dragon already started up. Tian waiting in the shadows. Trying to get vision down with Weibo Gaming, using the Void Seekers from Light. Not going to go for it. They just give it up, knowing that it would be too dangerous to walk into NIP at this stage of the game. As you called out before, Weibo Gaming, the game definitely gets better the later the game continues on, as long as they can stall it out. And I think that was just a moment where Weibo Gaming say, okay, guys, let's calm down. The game is not over yet. It's hard, but it's not over.
It's never good to lose pressure in the early game, but if I'm sitting there looking and I'm seeing, oh, Annie's got Tibbers and stun, and there's a Varus who can throw ultimate out, and a Wukong who can turn, I'm probably not walking into darkness on the map. It's probably something that I'm trying to avoid as much as possible. So completely agree with the play. No reason to die over second dragon, especially when it's been so delayed to get to that soul. What I need to see from Weibo Gaming now is I need to see some level of proactiveness to pull some gold back somewhere. It doesn't have to be through kills, but it does need to be through map play. They have a really, really good split push comp if they want to try and go for it with things like Talia. You know, even Ornn or Kai'Sa in a side lane can really push quickly. I want to see them start playing the map a little bit better, the macro game a little bit better, just to draw back some of this gold lead and try to neutralize it a bit so that when you do get to some of these team fights, you're not so far behind in terms of the wall.
Sure, and for Weibo Gaming, we know that that is definitely something up their alley, right? But Weibo Gaming has just got to execute it now, and with Xiaohu being the forerunner of dictating the map, we haven't gotten a chance to see him really extend that map pressure. Even though he's been on the bottom side lane multiple times, he has not been able to knock down the tier 1. Meanwhile, potential play being set up on the top side. Aki is waiting in the wings because they spotted Actually, they didn't spawn because there was
everybody's here
blocking
now.
out that tri-bush, but Aki at least smells something is up. He's able to get vision of Tian walking through the river. But they bought enough time that Solo Kill says, okay, well, no one's answering me on the bottom side of the map for now, so I'm gonna get a tier 1 for free, continue extending the gold lead further for my team, and now that while someone is answering the wave, Solo Kill, does he have to be up?
He does not.
Okay, well,
He does not.
I was gonna see if there is an opportunity for NIP to make a fast play with the TP somewhere, but looks like that's not the case.
I still think this is really great for NIP. We just talked about how Weibo need to control the map, and all of a sudden, you pull enough pressure to allow your Scion to take a tier 1 bot for free? I mean, that's the dream scenario for Ninjas in Pyjamas here, but Otacon has spawned on the bot side. Tian is going to be first on this movement. I don't think they're going to start it up here. That would be very risky to force NIP to come into them, but I think they do understand that Doinb is not here quite yet, and it looks like they are at least going to be walking away from it. Definitely would be a very scary start, so makes a lot of sense. But Breathe now on the top side.
Lands the knock up on the Doinb. He still has flash. He's gonna try to flash away from Light, but great searing charge from Breathe. And who better to pick up the gold than Light on this Kai'Sa?
That's exactly what Weibo need to find. They need to find these picks in side lanes that can create gold for their primary carry, which is going to be Light on this Kai'Sa. The cleanse is burned there, which is important for a potential Otacon fight if that does end up happening, but Xiaohu now is going to be taking this topside turret. Important that there is no teleport available. That means that to make this play, they are happy to concede the Otacon. Certainly a bit of an interesting decision, a very aggressive one. We've seen Otacon priority go up massively on this new map, on this new patch, but we'll see if it ends up paying off.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm sold on it, to be honest with you. Like, old Otacon, if you didn't get it, it's like, okay, whatever, it's not the end of the world. To me, Thornbound Otacon seems way more powerful than either of the Otacons that we got in the previous stage. Like, even with the one that you got the res, so you could just kind of hunky-dory, play for, play really aggressively for no reason, just to see if you could get some kills on the back end of it. This is a permanent buff. It is an AoE damage and slow that pops off of takedown, and it's very, very easy to just snowball a fight in your favor once you get the first reset off. So we'll see if Weibo Gaming can make it work. Obviously, the gold lead has been, shored up a little bit now. It's no longer the 3,000 advantage. It's just under 1,000, right? So Weibo Gaming, if they can play the map and never engage in these team fights, then you know what? I'm convinced.
I mean, that's a big if that we're talking about for Weibo. I think their game state has gotten significantly worse. I mean, you pointed out this Otacon is insane in terms of what it offers. I think we've seen a pretty ridiculous win rate for the teams that do end up getting it. So we see Ninjas in Pyjamas prioritizing this dragon. This would be sole point for them if they are able to grab it here. It looks like it is going to be relatively uncontested as Xiaohu tries to get this tower top lane. He's going to try to trade Doinb as much as he can.
Oh,
grab it.
Really nice job by Xiaohu. He's okay absorbing the Tibbers because he's got Seraphs on his side, waiting for Doinb to not have the stun preloaded up before he commits for the turret and takes some damage on the back end. There you go. I mean, Weibo Gaming are at least trying to play the map game as much as possible, but they are losing dragons, and as you called out, it's sole point for NIP.
As Flash. He wants to go for it. It is available. They don't want to go for it. I think that makes a lot of sense. You got to be very scared here, but you're right. That's a great play for Weibo. I actually really love that. Giving over soul point is not really that big of a deal. It's going to be difficult to contest that anyways, and to be able to not only pick up that top lane tier 2 tower, but to get all of that gold onto Talia, who can now move it around the map a little bit more efficiently, I think is a really big deal. So it's a nice play for Weibo. They actually have a gold lead, which is really interesting here, as we could see a skirmish as they catch out Aki.
Really good flick on the Aki. That's going to force the Cyclone. Can Tian close the gap? Aki already suspecting that potential, flashing away, but the Weaver's Wall is going to cut him, and a whip becomes lightning into Flash.
Oh,
Is it
Aki.
enough damage, though? No! Aki survives. Tian thought that he had it and was trying to walk away from the incoming turret shot. They're trying to hunt for Aki. Do they know that he's in the bush? Did it tag him? It did. It forced him to recall. Breathe. He's going to send it for the searing charge, and the Bellows Breath is what ends it all. Magnus storm under the tower. Doinb's in trouble.
ppgod.
Here comes the re-engage. ppgod. Massive Pop Blossom, but doesn't do enough and only trades 1-for-1 so far. Weibo Gaming still on the assault on the front, but there is the Thornbound Otacon doing work, already finishing off Xiaohu. But Light and Tian are still alive as Tian is going to dash over to a clone, not find another kill, but they're going to get a tier 1 on the bot side. But Leaf during this whole time was just sieging mid.
He wasn't even there. They didn't even have their AD carry for that entire fight, and yet they're still able to walk out of it relatively neutral. It's very sloppy from Weibo Gaming. They just barely aren't able to clean up. Aki and Xiaohu, I think, takes 4 or 5 tower shots throughout that and just kind of dies throughout the process. It's a very, very messy fight, but at the end of the day, it's still gold going into the pocket of Weibo. And now you are looking at, maybe not a big gold lead, but something that, they actually can play out from here on out. Light has 2 kills, and they're starting a Baron.
They know that Doinb doesn't have TP. They saw him getting the wave on bot side. I think that is why they're making the call. Solo Kill has a TP as well, but he's already here in the river. He's going to be the first one to face check alongside Aki. No flash on this Wukong.
So low.
Weaver's Wall will cut Aki off, but he can just sneak in with the W clone.
No way!
Kill that steals the Baron out of all people. That's freaking crazy. NIP lose their jungler, but Solo Kill will walk away the victorious one.
We wanted to see the new kid make an impression. Well, he is making an impression in this game. Solo Kill somehow gets in there and gets the Baron, despite both junglers being in the pit with Smite up. I don't even know how that happened. We'll have to go and watch it, but see on the replay here, the Weaver's Wall goes
Slow down.
Oh, no way.
Oh, okay, so Tian didn't even get the Smite off because it was 1300. It was probably just Aki and Solo Kill talking to each other, and they just said burst in, and
yeah,
it worked out.
Hey, and if that's the communication, if that's the team synergy that Solo Kill brings that Shanji didn't to the team, then that's the difference. That's the thing that really gives NIP their advantage. The game was starting to feel like it was getting a little bit out of control for them, but that is a huge pullback. Now they're going to have full pressure on the map for the next 2 minutes, and we'll see what they want to use it for. Dragon is spawning in a minute. Baron buff will be up for that. They'll have full shove in any lane that they want. This is Seoul, so a lot on the line for Weibo, and they could have just seen a lot of their hopes and dreams go down the drain with that one play.
Yeah, I'm not even mad about the call from Weibo Gaming. They almost played everything right. I think it just certain variables like Wukong being able to clone over the wall, Sion having a max HP damage on his W when it detonates. Just some of those variables probably just not being taken into consideration, and NIP are just able to outplay them in that factor. As called out, 36 seconds before Soul Point for NIP does spawn. Weibo Gaming are struggling to maintain mid-prio with the Baron buff on Ninjas in Pyjamas side. And as they retreat into the bottom side jungle, the only recluse that Weibo Gaming has is that they have vision thanks to that crab.
Yeah, I'm watching for Breed's ultimate. That's going to be the big go button, but it's actually Solo Kill going first.
Wow. Okay, Solo Kill ultimate canceled by W from Breed, but he's already taken a lot of damage from Leave on the backside. Forced to leave. Tries to take a recall here. He has teleport, so he can rejoin the fight, and he still has Call of the Forge God. So ult advantage for the side of Weibo Gaming.
Yeah, the teleport's going to come back in, but this darkness, it's such a problem for Weibo because there's so many pick tools. More Ninjas in Pyjamas. The Dragon has started. The Dragon is gone.
They're not going to get a chance to get it. Tian is nowhere near. Infernal Soul secured. Solo Kill tries to absorb it, flashes away from the flick, and now he tries to step up with a decimating smash. ppgod, it's just a clone. Now Aki initiates with the Cyclone, looking for the backline. Light is forced to flash away. ppgod finds the Plow Blossom to follow up as well. Urhoff falls to leave, and it's all into the backline. Xiaohu and Light, but they get stunned up by Solo Kill, and even though he goes down, he has done his job. ppgod and Doinb are still alive, but Tian leave. He can turn around. He finds another ppgod, and now it's just up to Xiaohu. But ppgod, the last man surviving on NIP, an absolute bloodbath in the Dragon River.
It's a 4-for-4 in a really tense fight. It's beautifully played by the mid-jungle duo of Weibo Gaming. That felt disastrous for Weibo. It felt like that was the entire game going away in one fight, but They end up being able to pull it back just based off fantastic positioning. Xiaohu does so much damage on the back end of that fight on the Talia. We're going to get a replay here. This dragon is gone. They're not even able to get in, but they decide to go for the fight anyway. Solo kill ends up being the priority target, but there's no way for them to be able to get on the back line with the Nico clone, with the Scion. This was the problem we were talking about. Aki goes super aggressive to try to get onto Light, but once he burns the flash, he's actually a little bit overextended. A lot of damage is going down, but it's on the Rel, and it's on the Ornn, and so you can see that situation where Xiaohu just has a lot of time to hit, more than maybe people would expect on the back end. Tian ends up going untouched for a lot of this fight. Remember, he's the one with all the gold, and so he ends up being able to pull back quite a bit and ends up being a 4 for 4, but that's still Infernal Soul going over to Ninjas in Pyjamas. Not only that, but they add that on top of the Otacon, and now you're looking at all of these permanent buffs, and great, you got a 4v4 fight win, but things don't get easier from this point onwards for Weibo.
The tragic thing for Weibo Gaming is the fact that that fight would have been so winning if they weren't playing against Infernal Soul and Thornbound Otacon buffs that NIP secured for themselves. Because you saw how much of a difference it made in being the finishing touches on Light and some of the frontline members in those resets. So, Weibo Gaming, the fact that they are surviving and still finding a slight advantage despite all of this just goes to show how easier of a game this could have been if they were a little more precarious when it came to that objective control game.
Absolutely agree. I mean, that is the difference maker in the game right now. These two teams are basically even. Weibo actually has a 1k gold lead in the game right now, but none of that matters because there's so many more numbers and stats on the side of Ninjas in Pyjamas that were basically given to them for free. But I'm really going to be looking at this Baron. 45 seconds spawning on this. This actually is a good setup for Weibo Gaming, and they're going to try and pick somebody off who's a little bit too far forward. See if they can end up finding a death push situation here, but as long as they control this area, I think things are going to look a little bit more interesting. No shove going on just now that's going to be scary for them.
Summoner spell rundown. Xiaohu and Light down flashes. Tian down flash. Doinb has his flash available. Lee's flash is coming up in the next minute. So is ppgod. There's a few members here that, without that summoner spell, could be viable targets. And Doinb could be the difference maker, knowing that he has the advantage while the backline of Weibo Gaming does not. Some posturing in the mid lane. Decimating Smash will go wide as these two minion waves will meet in the mid lane once again.
Yeah, I'm watching Xiaohu on the side here. We're going to see if he steps up and wants to posture more aggressively. Doinb is ready to counter-engage if anybody goes in. Overextended, but Weibo just want priority on this Baron. That's what they're playing for, and they've gotten it.
Urha trying to bait them into the line brush. Good combo! Wow, that was cool. But unfortunately, that's a giant Scion. So he's not going to go down to anything cool like that. Weibo Gaming forced to give up pressure in this mid lane and this Riverside. As a base comes out from Xiaohu. Might have had enough gold for another good purchase here. But it's going to give NIP time to now invade the topside jungle and guarantee more of a push here.
Yeah, I think they understand that they can delay this as much as they want. Again, they have those free stats forever, and so they're not super scared of pushing a little bit too far forward here. The pings are actually going to come down on bot river. Minute and a half on Elder Dragon. It looks like it's going to be a bit more of a standoff until we get that major objective spawning. It doesn't seem like either team wants to fully commit onto this Baron and potentially risk losing the game as we see vision control coming in from Weibo. It's all going to be about the go buttons. Whoever presses theirs first is going to be in a pretty good spot. It's all about whether or not Weibo feel comfortable to pull the trigger.
Sure. And Weibo Gaming have learned from their lesson that just trying to rip a Baron while all 5 members are available, not a good idea. Urha being discovered, not great for Weibo Gaming, as that was a pretty nice flank angle, but ppgod and Leave will seek him out. Weibo Gaming now serving up the Baron, trying to bait NIP in. The Weaver's Wall, a little bit more preemptive. Throws solo kill and ppgod on the other side.
They're
Aki
burning
can still get over the wall. 5k HP. Aki, can he get closer this time? 2k! It is secured by Tian. ppgod tries to fall over the Pop Blossom, but the flank from Urha is good enough to buy space. Light now in the 1v3 goes down, but he still has the GA. Xiaohu still has damage. See if he can carry out the fight, but solo kill is still alive, and he is massive. Doinb able to find Light outside the GA and kills him, but Tian pops off and is able to survive, finding a triple kill and somehow keeping Weibo in this game.
Tian saving the game for his team. An unbelievable fight from him on the Xin Zhao. Not only is he able to smite down the Baron and secure that for the team, but when Light is going down, when Xiaohu doesn't have the damage, he's able to step up. I want to get a replay of this. Aki is, of course, able to get into the pit. This is a straight-up 50-50 with ppgod trying to make this on time. Eco ultimate just barely not landing, but Herald just gets full combo down. Morel's not really able to accomplish anything, and Light is on the wrong side of this fight, which is a disaster. It looks like it's over at this point, but the Guardian Angel coming in so clutch for Tian, and we can see the damage really being output here. He's able to burst down, leave with the flash. Gorgeous stuff from him, and then, you know, the Scion is the next to fall. Without that fight there from Tian, I think that game is over, and Elder Dragon is up, and Baron is still available for Weibo Gaming.
This has just been a consistent story of Weibo Gaming having no absolute business of still being in this game, and yet somehow they still manage to find their way in this game.
Breathe is
Meanwhile,
dead.
Breathe, he is getting bursted out. I don't think he's surviving this, but the Weaver's Wall keeps him on the other side of the fight where there's no more damage that can follow up. Breathe doesn't have
They
TP,
burned everything,
but he gets
though.
to survive for now. But now it's going to be a 4 versus 5, and Elder Dragon's already getting bursted out. There's a potential flank from ppgod, disguised as the Wukong. Tian, can he pull off a miracle? 2k HP, who gets it? Leaf secures it, and now Elder buff is on the side of NIP. Tian will be the first one to fall. No more Baron buff, no more support on Raafaa for Weibo Gaming, and now it is NIP with the keys to the kingdom. We'll see if they can close this one out from here.
And just as it felt like it was getting back in favor of Weibo, that the pendulum was swinging, once again, Breathe gets caught in Bot River trying to get some sort of vision, and they have to burn so much just to get him out alive. It ends up being a 4v5. It's a free Elder Dragon, and IP are going to be pushing in. Leave is going to be very, very dangerous in this situation with that Elder buff available, but Kaisa, Talia, they are still alive. The front line here of Ornn, they're still alive. Can they hold?
17 seconds on Tian. If NIP don't win from this position, I don't know how they will, but they're sending it. Aki onto the backline. Cyclone. There goes Xiaohu. Breathe still tanky. Light is still surviving. They find Aki. No way to defend this, right? Timbers is trying to force Light away from the base. Raafaa falls. Tian's back up. Hit the Nexus, NIP. Do it! Do it for NIP! And they finally do away with all 5 members of Weibo Gaming and pick up the first win of the series.
What a game number 1. Oh my goodness. That was unreal. Back and forth, multiple throws from multiple teams. I mean, it's everything we wanted to see. We wanted chaos, we wanted flips, we wanted fiestas, and we are getting exactly what we asked for.
My goodness. Well, NIP fans are rejoicing that they are able to at least potentially be on the doorsteps of ending the series win drought, because if I go back through their standings and their week-by-week schedule,
It's been a while.
It's been a while. I'm going to do some math if you want to follow up on
Yeah.
how great this is for
No,
NIP.
yeah, this is a huge win for them. They have not won a game in quite a long time, as Raafaa is going to pull out. To be able to pick up a game against a team like Weibo, who's been white hot as of late, their only real loss recently has been to Billy Gaming, who brought in their new jungler. I mean, this is huge for the confidence of Ninjas in Pyjamas, and to win in the way they did is insane. Oh my god.
They have
Give it
not
to me, Raafaa.
won since 8 series ago. They have not won a series since 8 series ago. Their last game win was... Oh, shoot. I have to do this all over again. I lost my place. Uno.
I think it's Top Esports?
Yep, 4. 4 series ago.
Not good, Raafaa. Not good.
The past 3 series were 2-0 sweeps, and it wasn't even necessarily like super stomps. There were places where NIP should have won a game, and then they fumbled the bag. But they didn't trip over themselves at the finish line. So NIP fans, rejoice. You know, you're not going completely winless in this series against Weibo Gaming, and this is at least a team that you want to be picking up wins against, because if you can prove that you can tangle with the middle of the pack teams, then that gives you a foundation to build up as you can work your way back into one of those potential playoff spots, right?
Well, you have to remember, we talked about it before, the middle of the pack is a cluster right now. A lot of teams are in that same area, And a lot of those teams are going to get side select, and you definitely want to be one of those teams that ends up being able to get side select and being able to, you know, start off on the right foot in these BO5s. Every win counts, and Ninjas in Pyjamas just set themselves up to pull off a really big one today.
Yeah, and I think there is some things that we can really be excited about, just the way that this game was played. Doinb being able to find another champion that can fit his wheelhouse and style of dropping waves early and roaming proactively to get shiz started for his team. And the fact that Aki had a very frustrating and annoying start, like, I've been on the receiving end of playing a Wukong into some early skirmisher that I'm supposed to eclipse in usefulness later the game goes on, but I don't get my farm, I don't get my buffs, and then you try and meet them at a buff that they're taking and they still get it without any punishment whatsoever. That's frustrating. You're falling behind in CS, but Aki recomposes himself, scales up, waits, and plays on good timers as Wukong, aka level 6, or whenever his team has CC set up for him to be able to cash in some extra kills for himself. Aki was not a liability this game, which is great. In fact, he and Solo Kill worked together really darn well to set up the initial engages for the squad. So already NIP showing one of their best looks in a hot minute.
I couldn't agree more. I think Aki and Solo Kill were excellent in this game. You talk about Aki losing so many resources in the early game. He did exactly what you would train any jungler to do, and that's focus the weak link, focus the weak side tank, and just get, you know, kill after kill after kill. They farmed Breathe in the early game on this Ornn. It was not safe for him. We're seeing it in the highlights. It wasn't safe for him anywhere on the map, and that applies to Aki, that applies to Doinb, that applies to Solo Kill. It was just a great job overall here by Ninjas in Pyjamas to identify exactly what they're supposed to do. I say as we see a more proactive play from Weibo Gaming on the top side, but
yeah,
you know, it really fell apart. I think for me, like the game opened up so much at the Grubs fight. That's where things really just started to get out of control for Weibo Gaming. They did a good job to try to pull themselves back in, but having such a mismanaged fight in close quarters really put them behind.
Oh yeah, I think, you know, obviously we gave our flowers to NIP where it was deserved, but I just going to show you how Weibo Gaming kept themselves in this game despite all of the fumbles early on. It just proves that had Weibo not blundered at that Grubs fight, had they not blundered and you're just giving up Thornbound Otacon for free, and I think they, you called it during the cast, they willingly did that because they just realized they were not in a position to fight at that point in the game. They needed gold on the side lanes by, you know, kind of injecting themselves with turret money on the side lane split pushing. Imagine if the game was in that state. You know, it's like we go back to the BLG series that they most recently played for Weibo Gaming, where when the early game is good, if not even, then Weibo get to play the map game and then they get to the team fighting stage and they're fine. But when they force things and then they trip over themselves trying to force that more and more, I'm looking at that Azir Poppy game between Tian and Xiaohu. Oh my goodness, what a disaster. And then it just kept hurting themselves over and over because they were like, guys, what did we do? We messed up. We need to get back into this game, you know, before calming down. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just snowballs. It snowballs out of control. It rolls down the hill over and over again for them. But I don't think it would be crazy to make the statement and to say that Weibo was the better team fighting team in this game. They had significantly less resources and still were able to come out on, you know, even footing in a lot of these fights. They just can't keep shooting themselves in the foot, man. Like, it's frustrating to watch a team that should be more consistent than they are just not be able to bring it down. Again, we talked about how their comp was harder to execute. If that's the problem, if that's the real concern, you know, pick engage. If it's just, oh, we didn't want to play side lanes, we probably should have picked something that was easier to play, you know, 4v4 around Grubs, pick that, you know, if that's what you want to do. But you got to start playing towards these, you know, things that you actually draft for yourself instead of just trying to play the enemy team's comp for them.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think this is Weibo Gaming's first stage series on the new map, because their last series against BLG was
correct.
Before we had the map change. So who knows? Like, obviously these teams are scrimming. These teams are trying to adjust to the changes, right? But who knows if that was something that, you know, they just, you know, kind of slipped in their mind. You know, once you get on stage, you know, things that you're trying to be more proactive about sometimes fall by the wayside in terms of habits. And hey, look at that player of the game to Solo Kill. that's a huge buff to our narrative at the top of the day for the
Oh, yeah.
pre-show. Solo kill, being able to pick it up for I mean, listen, the Baron steal probably secured it for him, but even if he didn't get the Baron steal, the way he was playing these fights and pretty much selfishly giving up his life to give up as many great engage windows for this team, exactly what you want to see whenever you put your top laner on Sion.
I mean, this was a perfect Sion game. You controlled the lane early, the Ornn got super far behind, and when you look at the ultimates in the back half of the game, can you even say that Breathe was more valuable than Solo Kill was in this game?
Real.
When Breathe's ultimate is so much better. Like, that's a credit to Solo Kill and what he was capable of doing. I think the chaos he was able to cause in terms of using the Sion passive in team fights as well, especially around that Baron fight, absolutely massive. Really did a great job. I think this was a team effort for Ninjas in Pyjamas. I think everybody kind of played their part, but I have absolutely no qualms with giving this to Solo Kill.
All right, well, we'll see if Ninjas in Pyjamas can find more circle compositions to draft around going into the second game. But before we take a break and go to our second game of the series, we want to remind everyone at home that we're extremely grateful to our Coffee and YouTube subscribers who help level up the show. A lot of the initial payments go into upgrading the broadcast, but a huge bulk of it pays on-air talent and content creators. Subscribe to our Coffee, linked in chat below, to unlock perks like the ability to ask LPL players, interview questions, or seeing your name on screen once a week. And I'm gonna keep saying it every time I do this read. This fancy graphics package is very much thanks to viewers like you supporting us with the Coffee, with the YouTube, with everything that you do. We didn't have this fancy shiz back in Split 1. We upgraded, baby. We got a new car, essentially, so it's awesome. So thank you so much. We'll be right back with Game 2 after this break.